Hi, my name is Chris and I'm the CEO slash co-founder of Operose. Operose is an augmented reality development agency and we mainly work with B2B clients, which essentially means that we connect with our clients like bigger companies, find out about their problems and then try to solve them using augmented reality. Some of the main things that we do is, I'll get deeper into those a little bit later, but just as like keywords, we create these heads-up displays for workers. So let's say you're in a sort of a IoT environment, we can bring that data together into your field of view. That's kind of one of our things that we do. We also visualize architecture or basically any product that you want visualized. And also, in one of our use cases, we visualize paint jobs. I'll talk a little bit more again later on that, but essentially we visualize paint jobs on any vehicle or even buildings or basically whatever you want visualized. And to start off, I'll ask a quick question. How many of us actually develop for VR, like develop, design, any of that stuff?
Or have in the past.
Yeah, exactly. And is there anybody here that does anything in AR? Not really. Perfect.
We tried once subtitles in Opera.
Oh.
Yeah, but technology wasn't mature yet.
Oh, cool. Very nice. Well, I spent the majority of last night just trying to come up with some topic that would interest the VR people as well as like AR people. So that was kind of the result I was expecting. Like, EEVR is VR, not necessarily AR. And I thought that something that would connect all of us if we want to do something like on a more serious level is maybe creating a company and running a company. So I thought I would just give a short like story of how we came to be and what are we doing necessarily or actually. So yeah, our project pretty much for me started off about 2 years ago now. When I met my professor in University of Tartu, I started doing this bachelor thesis with him on emotion recognition. And that was kind of my first introduction to VR and AR both. Pretty shortly after we started working together with that professor and like doing projects for international clients and people basically who needed our computer vision and computer like machine learning expertise. Yeah, so we worked a while on these random projects, and in the spring, about 1.5 years ago, I found out that my professor has this Gear VR headset in his office. I'd heard a lot about VR, it sounded like amazing, like magic, but I had never tried it. So I just went ahead and went into his office, asked if I can like borrow it for a couple of days just to test things out basically. And before he even gave me the headset, he asked me if I would like to like start a company together and do this thing more seriously. So yeah, after trying the set out for a couple of days, it seemed just as amazing as I had imagined it. So I decided to go ahead and why not, let's create a company and see what happens. And pretty much from there on, it's been like this huge, intense learning experience for us. We worked on VR for the first few months. Pretty quickly found out that at least the people or the clients that we had contacts with, like from research work and that kind of stuff, they tended to really like the VR business. They wanted to definitely do something, but when they actually describe their problems to us, for example, visualizing, changing materials on a car and like presenting it to a client, in the end it ended up being much more like AR focused, or just AR was so much more beneficial for those use cases. So at some point last fall, we kind of shifted a little bit and decided to basically do what we knew how to do anyway, and we focused more on AR. Around that time, we also took part in a hackathon. Bunk was the name and Telia was the organizer, basically. or Telia, Startup Wise guys, and Garage 48 were the main organizers. And has anybody been to a hackathon before? Yeah, a few people. So really quickly, just explain what the hackathon means, basically. So essentially, people come together on a Friday night. They form teams. Often the teams are composed of like very different people from very different fields. And they try to come up with a sort of a minimal business idea and some like minimum viable product that they could build by Sunday evening. After Friday night, there's this really intense 40 hours of development, and like both software development and business model development as well. Usually people even, or like not usually, but some of the best teams often find their first clients from hackathons. So hackathons, in addition to just providing lots of energy drinks, they also provide lots of contacts. And basically we had, even during the hackathon already, we had access to the whole network from Telia. So anybody that was Telia's client, we could get in contact with quite easily. Just get me a number, like ask a person, he'll give you a number, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, my advice, if you ever want to start a company, find good people. I think hackathons are pretty much the absolutely best places to do it. It's a good, really fast way to get criticism and get some feedback from actual users as well. And of course you get sometimes additional benefits like incubator access and some seed money and that kind of stuff as well. Which was actually our case. From the hackathon we had about like 20 teams, I guess. 10 of those teams passed on to the second round, which was this 1 month period when we went to Telia once a week for like 2-3 hours. Just basically a discussion or like expanding on the ideas of a hackathon, how to build a business. Usually we got some tasks and some, we had to do some reporting on how the previous week's tasks went. So that was fun. We were living in Tartu at the time, but everything related to those events took place in Tallinn. So it was pretty quickly we understood that this cannot last too long because we were driving from Tartu to Tallinn to Tartu about like 3 or 4 times a week, and we had like school lives, and it was a pain in the ass pretty much. But by the end of the 1 month period, Telia chose like top 3 teams who would go into the real like incubator, which meant kind of again expanding on the ideas of the previous phase, but in much more like intense way. So the incubator would mean that you pretty much stay in Telia for the whole day. You don't do anything but trying to like build a business. From 10 o'clock in the morning to pretty much like 10 o'clock in the evening sometimes, depending on how much you wanted to work. And yeah, we were lucky enough to be considered among the top 3. We got the incubator access and also some seed money to help us survive and buy food for a while. But at that point, we were sort of at a crossroads. Our previous team, or the team that we had up until that point, was mainly composed of like researchers and like people who had secure jobs and didn't necessarily want to leave them, like just because they got this little incubator access. And it became pretty clear quite quickly that we had to make quite a serious decision. We either can stay in Tartu, try to build the thing as we had before, or we can move to Tallinn and just see what happens with the whole incubator thing, and basically just see what happens. And yeah, we pretty much knew the answer to that question the moment we asked it from ourselves, but it was a lot more difficult to put actually into words, like say like I'm quitting all this safety and just going into this incubator. But yeah, eventually we did it. We kind of restructured our team a little bit. Before we had 7 people. After the incubator process, we were left with only 4. But all of those 4 people were like fully committed, like all in basically. So that was good. And yeah, we moved to Tallinn and tried to build this. In the hackathon, our idea was to build an app where a person could go to a website, let's say Amazon or something, basically any e-store, they could take their phone, look at some product, for example, a couch or a chair or anything, and then they could place that product into their home to see if it fits, if it's the right color and all that kind of stuff. So let's say we have this huge table, we want to see if it fits into this room. We just basically take a look at it from a web browser and then just look with their phone and see if it actually fits or if it's the right color. So that was our idea going into the incubator. While we were at the incubator, it became quite clear that there are about 30 or 40 of these apps already out there, and maybe that's not the best thing to do. So we kind of had to restructure or rethink our whole activities that we had done up until this point, and we decided to go a completely different path. And we ended up doing some marketing or targeting the marketing people or marketing segments of a company. So we would allow, for example, cinemas to use movie posters as markers, and we would, for example, we have this Iron Man poster here. You look at it with a phone, and children can take a picture with an actual 3D Iron Man. So we did this fun kind of stuff. But that again was interesting and it was fun, but it was not necessarily what we wanted to do. Fun fact about the incubator: since we had to move into Tallinn so suddenly, we didn't really have time to look for a place or anything. We decided on a Friday and we had to move on Monday, pretty much. Or Monday was the first day of the incubator. So what we did was we just contacted Telia people, said that can we crash in your office for a while, and we really want to find a place, but we just can't do it in time. And luckily enough, they were kind to let us, and we ended up sleeping on the floors of Telia offices for about 3 weeks. So pretty much for the whole duration of the hackathon, yes.
Is it the new Telia building?
The old one, actually.
Okay.
We were in the deepest place in the basement, and just locked away for days on end.
Like any startup?
Yeah.
Any proper startup?
Yeah, it was a really amazing experience. Thinking back, I think that's probably the most magical, or it was definitely the most difficult part as well. But just sleeping in an office, it's something you should read about. So it was really fun for us to do, and really happy we actually did it. But yeah, on the actual business side, we were moving forward with this marketing target. We contacted pretty much all the marketing agencies that there are in Estonia and tried to find some points where we could work together. Again, the people were super interested. Everybody's really, really excited, but they don't really know what they want, and we didn't have a clear procedure in place on how to find out what they need. So it was kind of this period of lots of meetings, but very little progress. Luckily enough, that was about the time that we got together again with Ryan Rannu and just started talking basically at first. We weren't necessarily looking for investment because we had some seed money from the MOOC hackathon, and to be honest, it's finding money is not that difficult. EAS pretty much gives it out just if you ask nicely, and there are always grants and everything that you can apply for. We weren't too worried about that. Yeah, we were talking with Ryan Rannu for a couple of months probably, just talking about the AR and VR in general and what he sees as the future will be and what we see what the future will be. And it ended up so that our world views pretty much matched in the places that was important. What was important to us was important for him, what was important for him was important to us. And we ended up kind of again shifting our focus, and this time we wanted to target the tasks or the sort of problems that can save anybody lots of time or money. So instead of doing something that's sort of entertainment or anything in that field, we wanted to really strictly focus on improving somebody's work, basically. And yeah, that has been our like main goal pretty much ever since this spring, I think. And yeah, we got lots of good contacts through Ryan and pretty much just trucked along and did some prototypes, found some clients, and yeah, at some point just things aligned well enough that took in a little investment from Ryan, which is meant to keep us going for the next year and also give us some freedom to experiment on a scalable product, which is our end goal actually. We don't really want to stay as a development agency. We want to find one good field that we can scale on. Because yeah, if you are an agency, pretty much, if this is the work that you do and that the time that you put in, like as an agency, it's just linear. We want this exponential curve, which is much more exciting. But yeah, in order to find that field or find that problem that we need to solve, we intend to just go through many different companies in many different fields and see what kind of tasks are best solved using augmented reality. So instead of just jumping in and doing the furniture thing, we want to actually find out what the problems are and how we can solve them best. So yeah, so this is pretty much where we are now. Like, fast forward to today. I think we've worked with Ryan like officially or legally now for about 2 months, and it has been a ride. Like the amount of progress that we made beforehand alone compared to with the input from Mobilab and like all the smart people that we have met it's night and day pretty much. It's not even comparable. But yeah, that's pretty much how we got started, how we got here, and yeah. If you have any questions, anything, by the way, just shout out and ask. You don't need to wait for me to say silent. Yeah.
Just a clarification, your augmented reality platform is a phone? Or
we actually use all sorts of different technology. Basically anything that we can get our hands on, we use. So right now we use just regular phones with a marker, SLAM, or basically just regular phones, HoloLens, we have a structure sensor, and any day now we should get a few more HoloLenses and maybe a Meta as well. Meta is...
What's a structure sensor?
It's this thing that you put on the back of the iPad, and then it can track your movement basically. Or you can do some 3D scanning as well. It's basically Tango in an iPad. But it's a lot shittier, it's not that good. It has a lot of problems and it's not what we use on our like everyday work. But yeah, our intention is to try every piece of SDK that's like worth our while.
And what's Meta?
Sorry?
Meta, you said, was that a thing?
Meta, yeah, Meta 2. They just started shipping, and if you compare Meta 2 to the HoloLens, it's pretty much the same comparison as comparing EEVR with a HTC Vive. So Meta 2 is basically a headset that's connected to a computer, and like all the processing is done in a computer. While HoloLens is completely mobile, everything is done inside the headset, and that's pretty much it. So it should allow us for like lots of like more higher quality, but we lose on the mobility side of things. But it's good to try out where the mobile will be in like 3 or 4 years.
Mobilab announced that they also have like these VR labs in Tallinn and Tartu. What's the hardware there, and how do we access this? Who can access
About Tartu, in Tartu I think you have to write somebody from Mobilab. If you want like contacts, I can organize that, it's not a problem. In Tallinn there's a small room, it's a pretty tiny room, it's like you bump into things and all the time. But you can access it if you write to Lift, or if you come to Lift you can probably set up sometimes as well. The Lift door is generally locked, but if you write and ask nicely, I'm sure they will organize a way to access it.
Lift 99.
Yep. Lift 99 is in Telliskivi, Loob.
Just getting random lift.
Not a random lift, yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering why you have an office in the middle.
It's perfect, keeps you moving. Yeah.
So as you've talked to investors, as you've talked to some of the businesses in your early stages, what sort of conversation have you had with them in terms of how they would use it? Because with augmented reality, I see a huge niche in training,
Mhm.
and a little niche, I guess, in entertainment, if that's the sort of business that they're in. But aside from that, you know, in order for them to actually go and say, we're gonna invest €1 million or something
Yeah.
greater than that, you know, what sort of use case have you seen that at least they're talking about and interested in?
That's a good question. The use case, or for a company to be willing to even like experiment with new ideas, it has to be like 10 times better than before. So in our case, we are looking at places or tasks that we can save like 5x or 6x amounts of time for individual worker. One of those use cases, I can't really talk about the client because NDAs and stuff, but we work with aircrafts, and in aircraft, everything that has to do with planes, every minute costs huge amounts of money. So we have one use case, it's basically inspection. You walk around and you mark down some stuff, and stuff happens on that markdown thing. That is one use case that, let's say you have a plane, you have to walk around the plane, you have like specific spots that you have to check. Right now you would have this like thick ass manual, you just start like reading codes and just trying to figure out what this place on the manual, like what does it mean on an actual aircraft. What we can do is we can simply take all those manuals, make it visual, animated, anything, and match up the physical and the digital words, and you no longer need to like go through the manuals, read the codes, see if it matches up and all that stuff. You can just look at it, see that it matches, good, let's go. So that's a place where we have a potential to save like 5 or 6x months of time.
So in an example like that, or any sort of similar example, are they actually using their phone?
No, in that case we are using the HoloLens, so we need a really high quality tracking.
Is it a normal pre-flight check that the pilot does, or is it
No,
longer term?
it's a little bit,
The technical
a
inspection?
bit more technical, yeah. Like,
Okay.
well, they do it like pre-flight, but it's not necessarily what the pilot does or what the main mechanic does, like 10 minutes before flight. Because that's like having doing tasks that may potentially like cost human lives at this point with the technology that we have is not really a reasonable thing to do. So we try to keep our use cases in places where we can't actually hurt anybody by the HoloLens just crashing, because it does that a lot, and there's nothing much we can do about it at this point.
Do you also use Apple SDK?
We're getting all the Apple devices this coming Monday, so at that point we'll start experimenting with those and also incorporate them into our actual products and services.
When is it coming out for the consumers?
I don't know. I have no idea, to be honest. The beta is out, but I think you have to apply or allow it somehow in order for it to work. But since we are not necessarily targeting the regular person or a person walking on the street, it's pretty much okay, because we can do all the setup part ourselves and just give the devices to the client. It doesn't hurt us in any way. Other than that, you know, betas are sometimes a little bit broken, but if you solve an important enough tasks, the client doesn't really care about little brokenness.
Augmented reality, are you only involved currently with visual augmentation, or are you also considering or already doing something like sound augmentation, or taking in from the environment and augmenting it back? I mean, sound as well.
At this point, we are mainly visual. How we do think about augmenting the environment is not necessarily sound-based, although that could have some value, but just we haven't found that yet. How we do want to augment the environment is gathering up, for example, all the IoT data available. So let's say you work in a smart factory where you have a bunch of machines. Some of them don't even have screens, but you need to get some data on them in order to do preventive maintenance and some other tasks that just need doing sometimes. So at this point, sometimes it happens that these IoT labs basically send their data into this one data center, And in order for the scientist or the worker on the shop floor to access that data, they pretty much have to call the data center and ask about it. But what our idea is that you don't need to call anybody, you just gather the data and you put the relevant data on top of the actual physical machine. So no longer you have to call, you can just look at the machine, like make some changes, and that's pretty much it. So that's kind of our long-term goal. We're taking the first steps in that direction. Like we have potential like pilot clients and that kind of stuff, but we haven't actually like done a full project on that area yet. But that's definitely something that we're taking a look at.
Sound is actually an interesting subject. I was wondering the other day, HoloLens even have like headphones?
It has these speakers here, and you can also plug in your own headphones in the back.
Okay, so sound is definitely part of the HoloLens.
Yeah. It has all the 360 sound experience that like VR headsets have.
That's cool.
So, even if you don't wear headphones, they have this array of speakers. So it's not just one place where the sound comes from. It can come from the front and from the back and all that fun stuff. So HoloLens is definitely at least paying attention to the sound quality as well, which is always nice to see.
But have you considered using the other Microsoft XR platforms like the ones with Asus and HP and Lenovo?
To be honest, I'm not that much familiar with them. Do you mean the platforms? Like HoloLens is essentially a platform.
Yes.
And all the other
these are
developers
other headsets
can-
for them,
Yep.
which are much cheaper.
I
Like
think aren't they
300,
supposed-
400 euros.
Aren't they supposed to come out in this fall?
Yes.
Yep, exactly. If
But
they come
I
out,
think
we
Asus
will
is
take it.
already out, I think.
I'm not that sure about it myself.
The Acer.
Acer.
It's very much
Acer
possible.
development kit was announced 2 weeks or something ago.
Okay, cool. We'll definitely take a look at it. But yeah, at this point we're using HoloLens and Meta, and we're gonna order Vuzix as well, which is like Vuzix is kind of this glasses that look like regular glasses pretty much. They have this small like bump on the side where they have the screen, but they're pretty much regular glasses. They're durable. They can actually wear them for 12 hours a day, and the battery lasts as long as you need. So that's a piece of hardware that would actually be useful in like a work setting today already. Yeah.
They can be touched here.
Oh, you have? Oh, can I try it later?
Yes, but the battery is dead, so.
Oh. Okay, but yeah, that's pretty much what we are doing.
Questions, what's on the poster?
What's on the poster? That's one of our projects. We did this architecture visualization project. It was a really, really quick one. I just met up with some people randomly in the lift, and they said like they had this event coming up in less than a week. Would you like to do something together? We said, yeah, sure, let's try it. Let's see what happens. Pretty quickly it turned out that 1 week is not necessarily enough time to make a good project, but it's a learning experience. And we ended up with a definitely like a reasonable product. Not maybe necessarily what we would like to have for a wider, like more scalable thing, but it does the job, let's say. And if it turns on, I can show it to you. I think it's empty, so we have to probably wait a little bit for it to charge. So yeah, if you have any more questions, I'm always happy to ask or answer, and we can have some like lengthier discussions in like tinier groups later.
So you are only staying in B2B, you are not trying to
Yes.
change the world for regular
Well,
people?
I think that they are like hardware. It's decently good today. It's not good enough for a consumer, and it will probably quite a long time before it will be good enough for like an end user or a consumer. The more like entertainment focused things or what we do is they're more or less just projects we do in the evenings just because we're bored, and not necessarily because we focus on it as a business.
Because
Yeah.
last comment would be that you said that VR and AR are not such different worlds, but the only reason we have EEVR is that we didn't think ahead. And I feel bad it every day.
We should have made the community should be named We AR, so it's like we are.
So, but anyway, the technologies are so growing together, and VR is also like going in the direction of inside-out tracking, which means you have to track the environment. And when Rein was showing his tilt brushy thing, then I thought that yeah, I can do the same thing with a regular phone and the Vive tracker, actually. So you just have this program that tracks the tracker, and then you feed the video to a mobile phone that doesn't know anything about tracking, but you can run around in a room which has Vive sensors. It's really mixed up, so in the end we will all be talking the same language basically.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Because even the Meta 2 that should arrive like in a few weeks, they say it has both VR and AR. So they have a wide enough field of view, so they at least claim to be able to do VR as well. I guess we'll see how that goes. But
is it,
in the end, like in a few
All
years.
you need to do is just make the background opaque.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So it doesn't really. At some point, probably the difference is gonna get like smaller and smaller.
the question is it strong? Is the light strong enough to block out the outside world?
Yeah, that's kind of one issue with HoloLens is that for one thing you can't display black color because there's no way to block the like optical see-through. And if Meta has the same issue, like there's no way to just make the background opaque. It's gonna kind of destroy the VR experience of that. But yeah, one kind of interesting obstacle in the way of like consumer-based AR that I found. Because I'm a big believer that we don't really need smartphones. We should be able to do all the things that we need with a pair of glasses. I personally don't like having the like block in my pocket. I'll be happy to replace it as soon as I can. But one like obstacle in its way is that there's no way to take selfies with AR glasses. I'm not sure how people are going to react to that.
Drones.
So you have a drone in your pocket and glass, and yeah, it's perfect.
You order that, Raven.
It's a mirror.
Order via the glass and it flies and takes a picture and flies away.
Yeah.
Selfie drones just circling the
Yeah.
city.
We have a Uber for selfies. You can just order a selfie drone and fly down.
This is an Amazon selfie drone or selfie drone.
Yeah, why not? Facebook, Amazon, Google.
Sounds like a new business.
Yeah.
Excellent. So
Yeah, I'll show this part later, and we can also show some of the stuff in HoloLens. But unfortunately, we couldn't bring an actual aircraft here, so we're gonna have to settle for things that other people have done.
we have a tank though.
We have time. I should have done beforehand, then I could have made something.
But one thing that was talked about in Munich was that when Apple announced that they are going to come up with SDK, that people are a lot more interested in AR because most people in the United States use iPhones, and when you try to do something for that market and you say, oh, it's only Android phones, then all the investors and clients are going to go like, oh, okay, yeah, never mind then. But they are a lot more interested now that Apple is the case.
Yeah, one good thing that Apple did is, basically there's this technology called SLAM. It basically tracks your movement or the movement of the camera based on only visual info. And that's, I think, that's pretty much what ARKit is internally. They just probably call it differently and have some fancy things on it. But similar technology exists on Android as well. But what Apple did really, really well, or they were smart enough not to release a broken thing. There are like 5 different SLAM technologies available on Android, but none of them works like as you would expect. Like there's this slight like shaking motion, and the whole thing like loses orientation and scale and everything. I tried out the ARKit. I was like shaking the phone like as bad as I can, and very occasionally it went a little bit off, but then in like 2 or 3 seconds it corrected itself automatically. So I think that's the best part of ARKit. Like they made it actually useful. and they're gonna force Android SDK developers to do the same pretty much. So yeah, really excited about the AR-Kit. Can't wait to try it.
Are you guys the only developers, AR developers in Estonia? So when I have a client asking for an AR job,
There are a
then you
few-
need to work the nights also, and not only days and the evening.
Yeah, we have experience working nights. But there are a few other companies. As far as I know, we're the only ones that do it as seriously. I think ProExpert does some things on HoloLens. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't seen or personal experience what they've done, but I've heard things about it. There's also, I think animazioni.de does something. But again, I don't really know what they are doing because I haven't seen them anywhere. There are others, but I think so far it seems like we're the most serious ones.
I guess if it is, then it is this marker-based something you watch through a tablet and then something pops up.
Yeah.
But it's not very augmented reality. It's just
Well, it is augmented reality.
It's-
It's different. Well, I mean,
old school.
it's useful. Like markers are really useful, even if you have the inside-out tracking, or even then, like markers remain really useful because if you want to, for example, identify a machine by some barcode, the barcode is basically a marker, and you can't really. It would be really annoying to map out the whole floor, and whenever you want to change the location of a machine, you would have to map it out in the AR environment as well. So I mean, in those use cases, markers remain like really important, even if you have the good tracking kind of stuff. They both together, I think, bring out the best in AR.
Yeah.
Yeah, the victory.